We've got to talk about Jair Bolsonaro, President of Brazil, President of the country with the second highest number of Covid-19 cases in the world, and he's now part of that total. Here he is telling reporters earlier about his positive test. He appeared without a mask, he then put one on and then told them he'd been feeling unwell since Sunday, had a fever, was suffering some pain, and that he'd taken a test and it was positive. Now, though, he says he feels very well.
For example, if I hadn't taken the Covid-19 test, I wouldn't know the result, and it turned out to be positive.
And, of course, this is a man who has repeatedly trivialised and downplayed the seriousness of the virus. There are any number of examples I could show you. Here's one from March after Brazil's first Covid death.
Given my history of athleticism, if I was to be infected with the virus, I would not have to worry. I wouldn't feel it. It would be like a little flu or like being under the weather.
The president's also ignored health advice and continued to attend social events. Here he is at a rally in April protesting against social distancing and lockdown measures. He coughed repeatedly during this appearance. He's also refused to wear a mask most of the time, despite it being compulsory in public since April in Brazil. And again, we weren't short of options. Here's one example from May. At other rallies, he's been shaking hands with supporters. This footage is from March, and throughout the pandemic, the president's been nothing if not consistent. This was last week.
We need to respect the pandemic. We regret those who have died, but I will make it very clear. The objective of the lockdown, of staying at home, was for hospitals to prepare themselves with intensive care beds and with respirators for those who are infected. I don't know of a single person who's lost their life because of a lack of ICU access or a lack of a respirator. So the goal is not to let the person who's infected infect everyone else, because sooner or later people are going to get the virus.
Well, Brazil is the epicenter of the pandemic in Latin America. It has over 1.6 million cases. Here's the WHO reacting to the president testing positive.
The virus doesn't really know who we are, whether we're prince or pauper. We're equally vulnerable. And I think what it really highlights is our collective vulnerability to this disease. So we wish Mr. Bolsonaro and his family the best in this regard. It is a time in any Brazil is a great nation that faces a difficult task and a difficult time.
Well, not long after news of the positive test came through, I spoke to our South America correspondent Katie Watson in Sao Paulo.
I think there's been a very mixed reaction. This is a very divided country politically, and I think that he has certainly made very many enemies in his handling of the crisis. So the reaction has been, anything from, well, this is something that he presumably thought was coming. People obviously wishing him well. But yes, the fact is, it's from the very beginning, he has downplayed this virus. He has said that he would probably not really suffer very many symptoms. He has been quite dismissive of the death toll as it continued to rise. And now, of course, he has the virus himself. So the irony has not been missed among the Brazilian public today here in the country.
Is it going to have any impact on his ability to lead Brazil in the short term?
Well, he says that he has cancelled engagements. He will be doing video conferences from the palace in Brasilia for now. So he is taking doctors' advice. He is clearly making sure that he will distance, although, as you pointed out as well, when he did the press conference, he did take his mask off. The journalists were very close to him. So he's still got that cavalier attitude, I guess, and I think that's something that he will continue to have. He wants the economy back up and running. We've seen here in Sao Paulo and in Rio last week, shops beginning to open, bars and restaurants, and that push to return to normality. But of course, with the death toll rising, with the cases every day being so huge, well, the sense of normality is not quite there yet here in Brazil.
And Katie, the last time we spoke on Outside Source, the bars and restaurants and some businesses in Sao Paulo had just started opening. How's that going?
Well, I went round the block again, seeing how, these restaurants are opening and the kind of excitement, I guess, of feeling that they could get back to normal. But there have been some shops that have refused to open. They say that that is, not a good idea, that they want to protect their workers, they want to protect the public, so they've decided to remain closed. But, the vast majority here are, after more than 3 months in quarantine. Brazil has locked down at the same time of Europe. It's been in lockdown for longer. We're still in quarantine here in Sao Paulo. There is that sense of wanting to get back to some kind of normality, wanting to get the economy going again. Of course, people need to earn money, but of course it's coming at exactly the wrong time, given that Brazil is thought not yet to be reaching the peak anytime soon.
It's worth adding that Jair Bolsonaro is just the latest in a string of leaders and officials who tested positive for Covid-19. Boris Johnson ended up in intensive care in April. Several other members of his cabinet got it too, including his, as well as his advisor Dominic Cummings. Michel Barnier, the European Union's chief negotiator for Brexit, told us he had the virus in April. Russia's Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin became the highest profile politician there to test positive, and the list goes on from all over the world.